father and my mother and I, we were interrogated by the police. Why are you fleeing Germany? It's the greatest country in the world. And my father kept telling them, we're not fleeing, we're only carrying a suitcase, that's all we have. I am going there on business, and I decided to take my wife and my son with me. We're going to, they have a 1-week vacation and we're coming back, so they finally let us go. Second big shock for me, I am now in Belgium. They don't speak German. I'm thrown into a French-speaking school. I had to learn French, and if that wasn't enough, in Belgium there's a second official language called Flemish, something akin to Dutch, and I had to learn that as well. But as you can see, I survived it, and at that age you learn a language very, very quickly. Within 6 months I was fluent in French. Move the clock forward to 1940. Let's first say September 1, 1939, the Nazis invade Poland. It's the beginning of the Second World War. Again, my parents, we have nothing to worry about. We are in a neutral country. Just enjoy life. May 1940, on the 10th of May 1940, I'm now 11. The Nazis now attack Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, and begin their thrust against France. My father felt an obligation to go to his office that morning in order to pay whatever salary was still due to his employees in case they wanted to flee the country. And on the way to the office, there is an identity check. He shows them his passport, and it is, of course, a German passport, and the Belgian police we got ourselves a Nazi paratrooper. My father is arrested. It took 3 days for my mother to locate him, and we brought him a suitcase and a blanket, and my father at this point said, take the kid and get the hell out of here as quickly as you can. You don't want to get caught between the Nazis that are coming from the east and from the Allies, namely the French and the British, that are coming from the west in order to try to support the Belgians and try to stop the Nazis from invading the country. My mother took his advice. She also took her own mother along, my grandmother, who was living with us in Brussels at the time, and we decided to head for Paris. I might add here that a few days before the invasion started, my mother had taken me to the movies. We saw an American movie called Test Pilot. There was a famous American actor, probably nobody in this room ever heard of him. His name was Clark Gable. Anyhow, when I saw that movie, I said to my mother, when I grow up, I want to be a test pilot. I think it's cool. Wear goggles, a leather helmet, leather jacket, and a white scarf. That's for me. So we were fleeing together with hundreds of thousands of people, clogging the roads. We were being machine gunned at this time. Every 20 minutes, the Nazis were trying to block the roads to prevent reinforcements reaching the Belgian troops. And every time we were being machine gunned, we would jump off the truck, leave the road, and lie down in the nearest ditch that was available. And as an 11-year-old boy, the only thing I could think of at the time, when I grow up, I'm going to be sitting in the cockpit of that airplane going da 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 da. That must be a lot of fun. So, anyway, what the hell at 11? What do you know? So, excuse me. It took us about 10 days to get to Paris. In Paris lived my aunt, my mother's sister. We weren't in Paris for more than about an hour, hour and a half. An air raid siren went off. My mother said, we're not staying here, let's get out of here. We're heading to the south of France. And we arrived along the Atlantic coast to a town called Bordeaux. And at this point, my mother's German upbringing clicks into place. We must go and register with the police. So, in Europe, when you arrive in a town, you have to go and register with the police and get permission to stay there before you're able to either rent a room or stay in a hotel or whatever. So, mother explains her situation. The French policeman scratches his head, says, now let me see. You're born in Germany, and you're married an Austrian. That makes you an Austrian, but there's no more Austria. You're in France, and you come from Belgium, but you don't have a visa, you don't have the right to be here. And you're accompanied by your mother and by your son. Never had a case like that before. I don't know what to do with you. Go and talk to the gendarmerie. And gendarmerie is a national police. My mother goes there. The guy's same thing. I don't know what to do with you. Go to the prefecture. The prefecture is sort of an administrative, a regional, like a county or a state administration. And there she sees a man who says to her, "Ah, madam, we know exactly what to do with people such as you. You're going to take a train and go to the south, near the Spanish border. There's a town called Oloron-Sainte-Marie. We have experts there. They know exactly what to do with you." So with the little money that my mother had, she bought a railway ticket for herself, for me, and for my grandmother. And we take a train and we go to Oloron-Sainte-Marie. As the train pulls into the station, it is surrounded by gendarmes with submachine guns. They take us off the train and load us on open trucks, and 20 minutes later they dump us into a French concentration camp. Now, this is not a death camp. The French had set up several concentration camps 2 or 3 years before the war, in the late 1930s, in order to hold refugees that came from Spain. A civil war. There was a civil war that raged in Spain for several years. It didn't end until about 1938. So we were thrown into this camp, but the camp was pretty miserable. The food was next to non-existent. We received something like a dark fluid, lukewarm fluid for breakfast, which was called coffee. You got a slice of bread, about 2 ounces of bread. For lunch, you got the lukewarm fluid. If you found a slice of carrot floating in it, you were very happy. You were lucky because you had some vegetable with it. And you got another 2-ounce slice of bread, and you got the same thing for dinner. There was no sanitation in the barracks, 60 people to one barrack, no bed, you slept on the floor, on straw that was spread once a week, they would sweep up the straw and put fresh straw in. We were infested with lice, with fleas, even though there were no beds, bed bugs. A lot of people got sick. Mind you, there are people there with 4, 5, 6-day-old baby, and people in their 70s, 80s, and so forth, all lumped together. Washing facilities, if you wanted to wash, there was a cold water tap outside the barrack, nothing inside. There also were no, I don't want to call them bathroom facilities, there were no toilet facilities. So if you had to go there, there was about 250 yards away, a muddy path, an open pit. You just balance yourself on a beam, and this is now June, south of France, summertime. You've all heard of French perfumes. This ain't the place where they made it. So it stank to high heaven, and we also were totally cut off from the outside world. We didn't have any newspapers, TV hadn't been invented yet, no radio. The only time we heard anything about what's going on in the outside world was when new prisoners were brought in, new internees, and they would tell us what's going on, but that usually meant that they were telling us rumors, and you know what rumors are like. You never know really what's going on. Clock moves forward. We're coming up to June 22. France surrenders to the Nazis, and France is divided into two. A northern part, which is the occupied part, occupied by the German troops, and the southern part of France, which becomes a so-called free France, but which is run by the Vichy government, which was even more Nazi-friendly than the Nazis themselves were. At this point, my mother hears that there's going to be a German Wehrmacht, the German army inspection team, is coming to the camp. And she decides, I am not going to stay in this camp with my mother and with my son and croak in here of disease, of hunger. We are going to get out of here. And my mother stationed herself at the entrance of the camp, and when the German army team arrived, She picked out the officer in charge, went over to him, shouted as loud as she could, "Heil Hitler, I am a citizen of the German Reich. I have been held by these stinking no-good Frenchmen for the past 6 weeks with my son and with my mother. I demand to be released immediately." And she thrust her passport under his nose. He looks at the German passport, he looks at the camp commander, says, "You call taxi for madame." Taxi takes madame wherever she wants to go. 20 minutes later, we were out of there.